And now we're joined by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the great senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. Ayaan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Also, thank you for promoting me. I'm not a senior fellow, just a research fellow.
No, let's go
that's
senior.
Fine.
I decided you senior. Okay. The most senior fellow. Well, I wanted to talk to you because I think as I talked to Jason that this is important, but we all have different ideas of what we wanted to get from this and why we thought it was important. So why did you think it was important for you to be here?
It was extremely important for me to be here because I really wanted to listen and understand what African Americans whose ancestors came here as slaves, were brought here against their will, what they have to say about race relations in the U.S., about disparities that we see. I'm, of course, very much impressed by all the accomplished people here at this conference. I wanted to know how they got here and how we can help Black people in America achieve what the people I have seen these 2 days have achieved for themselves.
So it's definitely a different narrative than what we hear, what you see and what you hear here, than what you see and what you hear in the media, right?
Absolutely. And I, like many other Black people, I'm really frustrated with and very tired of having to hear over and over again that just because you are Black, you are a victim of racism, you're a victim of forces beyond your control. We're told over and over again that we have no agency. I'm raising 2 Black boys here, and I don't want them to hate America. I don't want them to believe that America is a racist country. I think, like a number of people said earlier today, that America really is the greatest country in the world. The history of slavery is true and it was abhorrent. Segregation, true and abhorrent. But it's also really the only society in history that fought a war to end it. The story of emancipation is the story of America. And it is lethal for all of us to forget it, especially Black people.
Now, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I'm sensing an accent. So I'm thinking you probably weren't born here. Everybody knows. And your most recent book, Pray, is interesting. So I wanted Shemeka to be, ideally, because when you talk about disparities, all the disparities that we talk about in our culture today, the grievance industry, as some would talk about, or complaints, isn't just race, there are others. So, I mean, Shemeka, what did you want to say about the gender issue?
Well, American women to me are such whiny crybabies. They complain about every single thing. And I feel like as women here in America, we have it great. And when I see them crying in the streets, whining about not having rights, that's absolutely false, it makes me angry because I know there are women in other cultures who are having their genitals mutilated, who can't make decisions for themselves. And so how do you feel about the way you see American women carry on about us being oppressed when we're not?
So I want to say that is another media thing, which is a small minority of very loud voices in the mainstream media carry on about women being victims of help us all sorts of things, unimaginable things here in America. But I think the majority of American women are strong women, and I think that they're aware of the fact that they do live in an exceptional society where, if you compare it to where I come from, little girls are subjected to female genital mutilation. Girls are locked up. Young girls are forced to marry people that are 2, 3, 4, 5 times older than they are. Women in many parts of the world are not recognized as equal human beings, right, if they're even recognized as humans at all. I still come from a culture where young women are traded. You're sold to your future husband and your family accepts the money, and you have no say whatsoever in your own destiny. So I think it's another media thing where we focus a lot on what is wrong with America for women, and I think there is plenty. But compared to the rest of the world, it is an exaggeration of such proportions that, I do have to turn off the media to cope with it.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's part of the problem, because I think if a lot of the people here that I'm impressed by is not just the intellect, which is in abundance, but it's that people get the problem and they want to get to solutions. Like, let's stop with all the rhetoric and get to solutions. But how do you get to solutions when people don't want to focus on reality? So we talk a lot about reality in crime. We talk about race. And to piggyback on her question about gender, obviously the things you mentioned are abhorrent, right? But there's another factor. Like, we talk about women, we just want to have the same opportunities as men in a culture where literally men struggle with so many more things. Now, obviously, there's discrimination against women in certain areas, certain types of jobs, but we're talking women are more likely to get college degrees than men, more likely to get graduate degrees, but at the same time, men are more likely to drop out of high school, drop out of college, get shot, shoot someone, go to jail, commit suicide, all these other things. So if you take it as a whole, then, as you say, the media narrative is ignoring a large swath of facts. So this is kind of what the whole thing is about, whether it's gender or race or criminal justice. It's how do we get people to take facts and reality and use that as their premise as opposed to emotion?
I think we have to go on the offensive. I think we have to fight back. I think we have to recapture the institutions of information and knowledge. I think that we need to do this together, and I think we need to take them seriously because they're destroying the soul of America and what America stands for. If you convince anyone with any kind of skin color that they're the victim of something, you take their agency away. Women, if they're also going to believe that they can't deal with freedom, it is absolutely true. In human history, women were oppressed and continue to be oppressed in many parts of the world. But in America, women are not oppressed anymore. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying there are no problems at all for women. I'm saying we're not oppressed anymore. So as Shelby Still said over and over again, we have to embrace freedom, and we have to learn to live as free individuals with agency. And for those of us who know this, women, men, homosexual people, even transgender people, once you understand that grievance industry is profiting like parasites of very vulnerable communities, I think what we need to do is take the fight to them.
Yep, totally true. Well, I appreciate your time. It's been great. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, not senior, fellow at Hoover Institution and the AHA Foundation you have, right?
Yes.
And your latest book is Pray, right?
Yes.
So pick up Pray, P-R-E-Y, talking about the women's issue in migrants and
Well,
immigrants
very
in
briefly,
Europe.
it is about immigrant men who come from societies where they're not used to respecting women, and they come to places like Europe and they behave badly towards women. And the people who say they speak for those immigrant men are making excuses, or just because they come from terrible societies, they had a terrible, make excuses for them to attack women. And I'm saying, no. The fact that you were born in Syria or Afghanistan or Somalia and that you had a terrible, history doesn't give you an excuse to rape women, to hurt women, to assault women, and to make women feel unsafe.
And quickly, isn't that similar to what obviously that's more extreme, but here where we gotten to the point that we condone bad behavior, and so someone shoots or stabs someone, and the response isn't, man, we need to get that violent person off the street. It's, well, before we start putting people in jail, we need to understand what their lives are like and understand why they do it. That's not true. It makes no sense, because and what I say is, it's not that I don't have, murder is kind of extreme, but it's not like I don't have empathy or sympathize with situations that people have been in that cause them to do bad things. But I feel that people pay more attention and are more concerned with the rights and the feelings of the criminal than the people that they harm.
Right.
And that's the problem. And it seems similar to that no one says anything, or they defend them, which is even worse. And what are the politicians in Europe doing? Are they, kowtowing like they do here and just allowing it to happen?
Yes, it's the same. It's similar in many ways because it's the development of narratives. It's the development of a false narrative that turns the situation upside down, where you say, here is a victim, he's a woman who's been assaulted by a gang of men, and it was done ruthlessly. And you want then to ask the public to feel sorry for him, for the perpetrators, instead of the victim. And then the answer is, I think here in America, it is, look at the history of systemic racism and the structures that are all against. So this person couldn't help himself, had to commit these crimes because there is structural racism. And in others, they said, it's structural colonialism. So the narratives never end that make excuses for people and their bad behavior. And it's these bad behaviors that need to stop if you want, if you want true emancipation.
I have a question before you go. Do you think if we publicly mutilated men's genitals, that would cut down on rape and assault?
I am against the tit for tat approach to these things. So for centuries, men have been hurting women. I don't think the answer lies in, now it's our turn to hurt them. Let's cut their genitals off. They say, white people have enslaved black people, so now it's our turn. Black people are going to have to hurt.
No,
I think that kind of
something. So like if a man rapes
You mean
a
castration?
woman, not just to say, men have been terrible, let's do this to men. I mean, like if you go out here and you rape someone and you know the consequence of that could be you get castrated, I think it would cut down on the crime of rape. I think that's something we should think about.
I think we should not think about it. I don't
not think about that at all.
No, I think we've come a long way on the lane of civilization. We have decided to ditch cruel and unusual punishments. I think we should raise these boys differently, and when they commit crimes, I think we should hold them accountable. Enforce the laws that we have. The laws that we have. I don't think we should be imprisoning people just because it's great to imprison people. It's not great to imprison people. It's bad for society. It's expensive. It's bad for the person who's incarcerated. But you have to have a system of justice that functions. And a system with no tools of accountability is not going to function. So I think we have to hold the perpetrators responsible and punish them accordingly, but I don't think we should resort to castrations and...
Yes, that's why I'm not in charge.
There you go.
I understand where the sentiment is coming from. Yeah.
Ayaan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.